Hey everybody, this is Patrick Starr with the Weekly Tech Channel. Today we're going to find out which device is the better gaming machine, the Nexus 7 or the iPad mini. I picked 4 graphically intensive games and 1 emulator to help decide which was a better gaming machine. The 5 apps I chose are Real Racing 3, Shadowgun, Dead Trigger, Modern Combat 4, and SNEX EX Plus. This is Real Racing 3 on the Nexus 7. This is Real Racing 3 on the iPad mini. Can you spot the difference? It's a pretty big difference here. With the iPad, you're able to see behind you in the mirrors versus the Nexus, you can't see anything at all. I don't know if that's a limitation of the Tegra 3 hardware or just the faster processor of the iPad, but it's definitely a notable one. The iPad mini also bests the Nexus 7 in lighting effects on the dashboard, as you can clearly see here, and the amount of detail shown, whereas on the Nexus there's hardly any detail shown and no lighting effects whatsoever on the dashboard. There's also much more lighting effects in the iPad version than in the Nexus version, with detail to the roads and the cars. With a game like Shadowgun, spotting the differences were much harder to depict. The 2 images look almost entirely identical. Perhaps this is because Shadowgun was specifically designed for Tegra hardware. Looking closer at the images, the Nexus provides a crisper looking display with more contrasting colors. The game runs very smoothly on both devices with no hiccups, so there's absolutely no reason to play it on one tablet versus the other. Dead Trigger is another game by Madfinger Games that was optimized for the Tegra 3 inside the Nexus. As you can see here, the differences are very hard to spot, but the Nexus version does suffer from a little bit of hiccups in graphics performance here and there. Side by side, they look almost identical, with the Nexus having a little sharper edges. Last but not least, we have Gameloft's Call of Duty ripoff, Modern Combat 4. The difference in this game are once again a little harder to spot, but you can still clearly tell the difference between them involving detail and lighting effects. Notice the high detail the lighting provides in the first image from the iPad. The second is of the Nexus lacking in light detail. Look at them side by side and you can definitely tell the difference. The iPad version is much more polished and has more particle effects than the Nexus, but they both ran very well in my tests. There are emulators available on both iPad and Android that work beautifully on both platforms, although Android has a much wider selection. But what sets them apart is Android emulators can be freely downloaded from the Google Play Store, whereas the iPad must be jailbroken to run them. Playing these emulators with a touchscreen is not the way they were meant to be played. They were meant to be played with a controller, and with a little help, this can be achieved. On the Nexus, you can use what's called an OTG cable to connect a wired controller like the Xbox 360 or PS3 controller to play your favorite game. Or if you download a Helpler application on a rooted Nexus or jailbroken iPad, you can use the wireless Bluetooth controllers like the PS3 DualShock and the iControl Pad. Some Android games like Shadowgun and Dead Trigger have controller support baked right out of the box when you plug it in. Other games, like Modern Combat 4, have half-baked controller support that doesn't exactly work as expected. In this instance, the right analog stick doesn't work in Modern Combat. Also, I noticed there was some instability when using a controller in Modern Combat for Android, like what just happened right there. iOS doesn't have built-in controller support for most games other than the iCade controller. This can be remedied with an application called BlueTroll. BlueTroll allows you to map on-screen buttons to physical buttons on your controller. This worked absolutely fantastic in games like Modern Combat that would be better with a controller, and in my testing works best with the PlayStation 3 DualShock. Similar applications exist on Android like PS3 6-axis controller and Blues IME, but neither were as extensive as BlueTroll. In my honest opinion, I would say a jailbroken iPad mini is better for gaming based on graphics performance and controller support. Plus, it has the added ability to connect to a TV with an HDMI adapter, which the Nexus does not. But at $200 for a Nexus, it is an extremely capable gaming device.